All right, you're good to go.
Good afternoon, everyone, and thanks for joining us today. My name is Jessie Carlton, and I'm going to be filling in for Rhonda Devine, who normally does these, as she couldn't be with us today. She's got this down to a science, and it rolls really, really smoothly with her, so have some patience with me as I get going today. Today, I have with me Che Ritter, who's the Director of District Support, Matt Ross, who is our Office Policy Advisor, Wendy Newton, who's joining us to talk about a new participation tab. She's from the Office of Continuous Improvement and Support. And I have several others from district support with me to help with your all's questions. We have a few slides that we're going to go over before we get to the questions. You should have got it in your meeting invitation, so you could hopefully review it before we get going. We're going to zip through some of these because I know a lot of them are just reminders. And then we'll want to spend a little bit of extra time on some of the new things like the participation plan tab. As a reminder, you can either enter your questions on the team chat, which should be at the top right hand of your screen. Enter them there, and I know some people have already put some questions in on our Google form that we sent out with the meeting invite. So let's jump in and get going so we can get to some of your guys' questions. All right, Josh, let's go to the first slide, please. Okay, blending learning. This is just one of those reminder slides. Everybody, is up and going. We know you all know about blended learning. Just wanted to keep this in here because of that link to that meeting. I know it took me 4, 5, 17 times to watch it before I really started getting it. And sometimes I still go back to it if I have a question about how something works. So just wanted to keep that in there for you guys. Next slide. This is also a reminder. Reminder to mark those non-traditional days. I know a lot of majority of our schools right now are everyone is at home doing NTI remote learning. So it's a reminder that this year, unlike last year, at the end of last year, you're not going to put that 420 minutes down there in the bottom in the duration for the instructional minutes, because right now, whatever instructional minutes you have for the day in your normal calendar, that is what you get for an NTI day. Next slide. This is just another one to remind you that when you do add those blended learning groups, they'll show here at the bottom of this day, right there. And you can see again, there's no 420 minutes in the NTI day. Okay, next slide. Okay, attendance in the office. If you are having in-person instruction, either right now or sometime in the near future, we're going to remind you that attendance will be just like any normal year. If you'll take attendance, it's going to be reconciled in the office. And if you're doing remote, then that's when you're going to do the participation tracking, which can currently only be done by a teacher. So participation marks have to be given by the teacher with their roster. All right, next slide, please. Okay, all right. The COVID virtual participation attendance code. We had several DPPs and others who started questioning and asking us and saying, is the state going to put out anything for one of these participation codes? And what we're talking about here is that code that when you mark your participation, there's an option to enable a code to write to the attendance table. So we came up with this one. It's no COVID virtual participation. The status is absent. The excuse is unexcused. Did want to note that if your district had created an additional participation attendance code, that can be used in addition to this one or instead of this code. Just want to make sure we point out that the code has to have an excuse of either excused or unexcused. Because if it's unknown, then that unknown code will not write to the attendance table. I know we've had several questions of people emailing in and saying, I created my own code, but it won't write over, and it was because it was an unknown excuse code. Let's see. We've had some reports that this code is being overwritten once it gets there. We have been told that the office will, still have final say. So if you needed to put in attendance, it would hold once your office attendance clerks put in attendance, even though there was participation in this code coming from the participation into the attendance table. We've gotten some reports that that's not what's happening. So we have reached out to campus. We, you all can continue to reach out to campus as well if you'd like to put in a support case, but we're trying to research because we're under the understanding that, like you, code put in by the office should hold and shouldn't get wiped out daily by this code coming over from the participation table. So bear with us, it's new to us too, so we're trying to figure out that part. Okay, next slide, please, Josh. Okay, main thing here, this screen has a big change on it for what we've told you guys in the past. IC is currently creating a participation report. And we found out this week that for that report to work properly, the districts are going to need to write this participation code back to the attendance tables. We had told you all in the past that it was kind of your decision and you could choose to write this code back or not. As we're going, everything, we're kind of creating functionality as we go here. IC is creating stuff for us. We're trying to figure out how it fits into our system. And so now they're telling us, because we had this back and forth this week, and we said, we're not having everybody write these codes. And they said, well, for the participation report to work, we're going to need that code written to the attendance table. So before we get into this any further, I want to say that we know many of you have had issues with this, with writing this back to the attendance tables. So we do have a couple of suggestions coming up on a couple slides that we hope will fix some of these issues, but we also want your all's feedback today. If there's anything that I don't discuss that you say, turning this on also breaks this, or it's messing up something over here, please put that in the Q&A so that we can gather those and take them back, because we're going to be meeting with Infinite Campus again to see if we can work through some of these. Okay, next slide, Josh. Okay, this is just where I'm talking about for under System Administration Attendance, Virtual Attendance Preferences. Down there at the bottom is where it talks about that Enable Virtual Attendance Posting for the participation report. On here, you also have the option to choose when you want the posting to occur, and we think some adjustments to that section may fix some of the issues you had. All right, so next screen, Josh. All right, let's see. This is kind of just a recap that, we're working with campus to create this participation report, and we're wanting to know some of the other issues you all may have with turning this on. So next screen, Josh. I think that's our solution screen on the next. Here we go. All right, so the majority of the issues we have heard about coming from turning this on, the syncing of that participation attendance code into the attendance tables, revolved around parent portal. So we understand that, we're giving teachers, probably up to a week to post this participation in, one of those 4 ways of participation. So one of the things that we thought may help is, you can see there on that screenshot where you get to choose whether to post this attendance daily or weekly. So if you move that posting to weekly, what that will allow is that will allow your teachers to have the entire week to put in that participation before it hits the parent portal. So if you run your update on Sunday at 11:59, the teachers will have that entire week up until Sunday at that time to get that participation in before it posts to parent portal. Because I do understand that, you have parents who are working with kids on, Tuesday, and they say, I sat down with Kate and we did our work and we got it turned in, but, the teacher may not get to mark that participation until Thursday or Friday or, sometime over the weekend. But because it was posting daily, the parents were saying on the next day, Wednesday, that there was no participation on Tuesday when they knew they had sat down with the child. So one of the options is moving this frequency out to weekly instead of running it daily. Your other option is also just to turn off attendance in the parent portal. There are some pros and cons to this. We kind of talked through this on our end here at KDE. The problem with this is it's not recommended to turn off your parent portal attendance feature if you are having in-person classes, because a lot of parents use that as the way to ensure their student has gotten to class or is in class. So if you have in-person classes, we wouldn't recommend this, but we do want to remind you that it's an option to turn this off per school in your district. You don't have to do it one and all. So if you have elementary school kids who are all virtual or all remote and you want to turn it off because there really is no quote unquote attendance there, you can turn that off. Now your middle and high school student parents may want to see where they're logging in every day, because if I log in for first and second period, it'll show that I was there, participation, but then the non-participation code would go for my check in, check out for my third period to say, maybe I'm never showing up for science. So those are a couple of options because that's really what we heard mainly bubbling up to our level about what was wrong with turning this on. So as we go through here, just send us any of those other issues you have with that virtual attendance. Posting that into your attendance tables. All right, Josh, what do we have next? Ad hocs. Ad hocs for participation. We took a release, excuse me, from Infinite Campus last night, and they had entered in some new ad hoc filters into the filter designer that specifically are for these participation tracking purposes. They were added in last night's release. They are new to us, just as they are new to you all. So I know we've got lots of questions that have come in that said, what do these filters mean? Like, I'm getting out ones and zeros, or what do they mean? We have only had today to look at them also. So our first suggestion would be to check out Campus Community. A lot of times in Campus Community, they will have their ad hoc reporting filters, and it'll kind of lay out, if you use this filter, here's what you're going to get. If that isn't helpful and you still need help, we're trying to put together a sample ad hoc to kind of send out to the districts to say, we'll take a screenshot of it and say, if you create this one, or we may even create one and push it down to you guys, but you're just going to have to give us a little bit of time to, learn how to use it and push those out to you. But that's, hopefully that will be helpful for a lot of people who are wanting to check and see if participation is being recorded for students. All right, next slide. Next slide. This is something new, and I think we're going to have Wendy Newton hop on and talk to us about the new participation plan.
Good afternoon. This is a new custom tab in Infinite Campus that was pushed down actually last week, and then guidance was sent out at the end of the week as well. It's called the School Participation 2021 Custom Tab. This is located in Infinite Campus under System Administration, System Administration, Resources, and School. And then for each school, you will just, can you skip to the next tab so I can see the next slide, please? Okay. So this is where the tab is located. It's under School Participation Plan 2021 tab. Again, that's under System Administration, Resources, and School. So for each school in your district, you will select from the drop list the participation type, such as at 100% virtual, 100% in person, or is it a hybrid model? Your participation start date 1 will be the first day of school. If the participation type changes, say 6 weeks from now, on October 1st, you go from 100% virtual to a hybrid model, then you would end date the participation end date 1 day less than the participation start date 2. So participation location 2 would be a selection of hybrid with a new start date, and you wouldn't enter end date until it changes again. So that's just, we're asking that each district do this for every school in their district and have that completed by October 15th for a report that we have to submit to the legislature. It's pretty simple. I think a lot of people have already started completing this. If you don't have access to it, then you will have to work with your system administrator there in the district to get the appropriate access. And then I am the contact again for any questions regarding this new tab.
All right. Thanks, Wendy. And I think Wendy's going to hang out with us for a little while in case anybody has any questions about that or anything else we need to ask Wendy for help on. So let's see. Okay, we're on to truancy guidance. I have Matt Ross here with me who'll help me if I start stumbling on this. We presented these next 4 slides to superintendents on the Tuesday's superintendent webcast. There's a lot of information in here that we know you guys already know. Just kind of gave an overview, so I'm going to zip through these pretty quickly. On the meeting request, we also included a copy of the truancy guidance that is discussed here. So first and foremost, we want to, remind everybody that we have reached out to AOC and talked about this truancy guidance, but even though we've discussed this with them, we realize that, this is like normal truancy. Courts across the state treat these truancy actions and these cases differently, including different thresholds. So just because, we're giving this guidance, there's going to be, your own scenarios in your areas that will have to be taken into account. Next slide, please. I think this one is just, an overview of the fact that, we have suspended funding for this year, and it's not attached to attendance, but there is still the compulsory attendance statute that remains in effect. Next slide, please. Okay, so these are kind of some high-level things that goes with KRS 159-150, that parents and guardians are required to send their children to school. Any student who is absent without a valid excuse for 3 or more days or tardy is considered truant. I think 3 of those instances is considered a habitual truant. Just kind of some high-level issues there that you all know. Let's go to the next slide. And these are roles and responsibilities that are kind of outlined for the DPP. So having said all of this, after our discussions with AOC and the guidance that we have set out, we're encouraging DPPs to continue their connection with families. So, you can use the participation as you would use attendance. So if, Johnny doesn't show up participating at all in class for, 3 days, whatever your district policy is on however many days, you want to still take the normal steps that you would, even if it was in-person attendance. Reach out to that student and that family, whether it's in person or remotely. You still have, your district compulsory attendance policies that you need to follow. We encourage you to, facilitate communications and use, teachers, rescue coordinators, families. We've also suggested that, some people were questioning how they could use some of their classified staff to assist. Teacher office hours may be a way to use those classified staff to pair them up with a teacher and let them help reaching out to these students and trying to make that contact. You want to continue to, document the home conditions and your intervention strategies. And, where appropriate, you need to consult with your, court designated workers or, your FAIR team. So home visits, any home visit that is conducted needs to follow whatever your applicable district guidelines are, because I know different districts have guidelines for going out and visiting and interacting with families right now during COVID. So that's kind of your, overreaching guidance that we've given. You can treat participation like you did attendance, but you still need to make every opportunity, to reach out and connect with those students. Matt, is there anything I've missed that you want to add to that?
No, I think you did a good job summarizing it. I mean, I think we understand that it's going to be difficult this next year, but the overarching point is that we need to try to engage as many students as we can and have as many students participating as we can, because we know that kids could fall through the cracks, and we know that it's important that they don't fall through the cracks, and we also know that the General Assembly will be watching to make sure that we're doing a good job trying to educate all these kids. So that's all I'd add.
Okay, thank you. All right, Josh, do we have anything else, or is that it? Oh, all right. Now's where I get to be on the hot seat with all your questions. So Let's see, Josh, can we start out with the questions from the Google form? And then I think maybe we'll move over to the questions that have been entered today. Does that work?
Yep, that sounds good to me.
Okay.
So one of the first questions is, are districts required to put students in the QCP and QCE attendance group?
Okay, so the QCP and QCE attendance groups were created so that you could kind of maintain a list or somehow track students that had either been, had a positive COVID diagnosis or who were quarantined for some reason. We do not have anything that requires you to use these because, attendance isn't being tracked and it's not tied to attendance anywhere this year. But I would recommend that if you can, I would go ahead and do it because there's been some discussions going around with Department of Public Health that it may be asked of districts sometime in the future for a daily count of, how many students they know are COVID positive or how many students in their school they know are quarantined. So if you're putting this in with those date ranges, similar to what you would do with home hospital, you could just run a report, run a quick ad hoc, and be able to see how many kids in your school you already have falling under those codes and not try to be, keeping them somewhere outside of the system. So that's why we created those. And it also helps for teachers because, you should be able to see that on the student's attendance tab that they're in that attendance group.
All right. Does the new attendance COVID group map to the student's attendance tab? Example for home hospital.
Okay, so I think they're talking about those QCP and QCE attendance groups.
They are, yes, yes.
Okay, all right. I was under the understanding that they should map to the attendance tab. Or if we're having
and I don't
issues
care
of them not.
For you, Jesse.
Oh, good. Yay. Thanks, Josh.
So the reason a lot of districts think that is writing to the attendance tab and that doesn't. So usually your DPP or your home hospital coordinator is taking care of that. So when they mark that in the attendance group, they go right behind that and put it into their attendance tab, running the wizard.
Okay, so for home hospital, they're not only putting in the group, they're also then going behind them and putting it in the wizard. So it does show in the attendance tab.
Yes.
Okay, so there will need to be for it to show in that attendance tab where teachers see it and know where their students are. That that would be a second step to run the wizard afterwards for that.
Yes.
Okay.
Next question is, how will no pass, no drive reporting work? Will the participation report be used to report absences?
Okay, this is one that is outside of us. I think we're going to have to call up. I would say call upstairs with nobody's upstairs in my house. So we're going to have to call another group at KDE and figure this out. I don't exactly know how the no pass, no drive is going to work with this. I don't know if they have decided to use participation in exchange for attendance or not. We'll note that and we'll get that on our Q&A and get that back out to you. We'll flag that one.
Hey,
Wendy.
This is Wendy, and no pass, no drive is in my office. It kind of is managed between, we're kind of like a facilitator though, between the system that is actually maintained through the Department of Transportation. So yeah, Josh, if you'll work with me after this, we'll get an answer out to make sure we tell people right. My thoughts are it's going to come from participation, but we'll definitely want to check into that to make sure.
Okay.
Thanks.
All right.
I will mark that one real fast. We have a lot of questions talking about the ad hoc for blended learning, asking if there's any reports or if there's demos out there yet. So I think most of that's going to be coming from Infinite Campus off of Campus Community.
Right, and it's new, so give us a day or two for us to play with it too, and try to get it into some ad hocs. We'll try and get a couple if we can't just get the screenshots out to you where y'all can create them. See if we can even create some and push them down.
Okay. We have a number of students who are enrolled entirely in virtual performance-based courses. Is participation marked outside of Infinite Campus?
Okay, say that one more time. Sorry, we have who are outside of the IC.
I think what they're asking is, remember we made that course code 960001 for the placeholder for any virtual performance-based courses, and then that can be marked for attendance. But remember, your virtual performance-based classes have to be outside the school day, and those classes are not marked for attendance.
Correct.
So I kind of answered that all in the same.
Yes, yeah, you did. That's why I was kind of like, yes, that's right. So, okay.
And we have still a lot of questions. Do we have any tools yet in IC to run participation reports by school, grade, and classroom? And of course, that is still coming.
We're working on that. That's what, that's going to be a report that Infinite Campus is writing for us, that participation report. We've seen the FRD for it, kind of that outlines, what it's going to look like. I will say that there appears to be a detail and an aggregate option, so that, I've seen people who are asking if they want, to show, specific students who are not participating on specific days. I think the detail report of that participation report will be able to show you, on a student level, who is and who is not participating. I think also some of these ad hocs that have been added will be able to figure out how to create some ad hocs to run to show teachers who either are or are not, marking participation and when they are.
For Head Start / preschool attendance / participation, the secretary is marking attendance / present in the classroom monitor each day. Is that okay?
Yes, I think that's okay. That's fine. I will say for Head Start or preschool, attendance wasn't something that was funded, so we weren't really looking at it for attendance. I think I've heard Wendy say, I reached out to her before this, that participation is only going to be tracked on K through 12. So yes, marking the attendance is still a good way for your preschool teachers to keep up with their kids and track it, and they can do it that way.
Okay. Our plan has been built not using the attendance posting, since we have not used it up to this point, and we need some days to adjust how will participation impact our first few days of school. Is it possible to have a later start date of the collection for participation given this change?
Okay, so I'm going to reword this kind of in my mind a bit. I think what we're asking is that if we had not been taking that participation and posting it to the attendance tables yet, and now we're going to have to make this switch to posting it over there, some of those first days of school will be impacted by that. I think this is something we will probably need to take and discuss with Wendy's group and participation. You make a very valid point that if you weren't writing it over there. Now, I will say that when you turn it on, I believe, if there's been participation tracked for those first few days and you have the date set, it will go back to the first day of school and post that participation over into the attendance table. Is that correct, Josh?
Yes.
There is a date. So as long as you have that, and I'm looking for my screenshots now. Can you go back a slide or two for me, Josh, to see that screenshot on the solutions page?
And this is Wendy. I can speak from a reporting timeline. Infinite Campus is still working on the report that we will actually use for monitoring as well. And so our first due date to present data to the legislature is not until, I believe, November 1st. So we probably will be starting to pull that data mid-October. So you do have some time to kind of clean up those first couple of months of, participation / attendance data.
Okay, and that is a very, very small screenshot, and my eyes are not very good. But the very first, I can't, as I'm squinting now, what does that first date say there, Josh? Can you see it?
Posting job start date.
Posting job start date. So that's the one, I'm getting the right one, right, Josh? That's the one that if you make that one your first day of school, whenever you turn this on, it will go back and post that participation or lack thereof over to the attendance tables to that day. So you shouldn't, and like I said, if you turn it on and off and on and off, if you turned it on and off, 10 times in the last little bit, it'll still go back to that first day.
Yes, that's correct.
Mm-hmm. So.
That's all the questions I have on my end. All of the rest of them are kind of similar that we've already talked about.
Okay. All right. Can we move over into here? Brad, do you mind giving us some of the questions coming from the teams?
All right. The first question says, I have my posting virtual attendance to attendance tab marked to begin on 9/28. Is this okay to leave it like that? It was causing us issues, so I wanted to leave it off until we had virtual learners and in-person learners at the same time.
Okay. If you leave it off, it's not going to post anything before that September 28th date. I would ask, what are some of those problems that you're having? So if it's kind of the parent portal problems, I'd see if some of maybe our solutions would help, maybe not posting it daily, posting it weekly. If there are other problems coming from that, let us know what they are, because we're going to try and work through with campus, because if they need that on for our participation report, we're going to try and work around some of the other issues.
The next one here says the biggest issue we see is that teachers often forget to post attendance or post participation, excuse me. In this event, an attendance clerk cannot remove the NCVP code. They can only post another code in its place. This isn't fair to the student who actually participated, but the teacher forgot to mark it.
Correct. I would go back to also seeing if maybe giving I don't exactly know what's going on in your district. So if you're giving the teacher only the day to mark it, maybe give them a little bit more time and move your attendance posting out from daily to weekly. And maybe having that extra time through the week to get everything done. Now, if they've just missed it, I will say that I'm under the impression, like I said, we have a case in with Infinite Campus right now. You should be able to override that from the office with like a positive attendance. And when the report is written, when the report is run, it will pick up that positive attendance and give the student participation credit for it. It's still, I don't know if that still will not allow your office clerk to be able to pull off that NCVP. So I think that's going to kind of just be something we're going to have to work through with teachers and kind of troubleshoot as we go.
The next one is a comment. It says the clerks can go into each student's attendance and delete the non-participation code.
Okay, there you go. So that's kind of a workaround to
Real
get
fast
through that
on that. Yes, the clerk can go in, but we're seeing that once it runs at 11:59 or whenever you have it to set run, that's bringing it back, that code back in, the NCVP.
Right. So that's what we're working with campus to try and figure out, because we're hoping that's maybe something going on in the system that we can get worked out so that they can pull that code back out. But if you do it and it's sticking for a day or two, that is, with all of this new functionality, you never know what maybe you have turned on or turned off that's a little bit different. But if it is coming out for you and the attendance clerk can pull it out and it's staying, that is an option.
Another comment here says it would be very helpful if the attendance clerk could fix the participation on the classroom monitor like they can for in-person attendance.
Yes, it would be very helpful. We recognize this. We have given that feedback back to campus, and we are hoping that that is possibly some new functionality that we may see soon in the future. I don't want to promise it to you because I know everybody will be very excited about it, but it is we've been in communication back and forth with campus saying that these office staff needs a way to be able to get in and help mark some of this participation. So fingers crossed. I'm hoping that we'll have some good news on that here in the future.
Next question says, if a child has an EHO for that day, does that teacher still have to mark the child for participation in order for credit to be granted?
I'm going to be honest, I don't know if we've really thought through the EHO. I would think with an EHO that there would be some type of verification of the educational opportunity that would be brought back to the school. And I would think if then you had provided something or some written, even if it's just the approval that happened to get them the EHO for those however many days, I would think that yes, the teacher could use that EHO to go in and mark participation for those days. But to get participation credit for those days, yes, there's going to need to be some participation mark put in by a teacher.
Next question says, what would cause when an attendance clerk removed the NCVP code one day and the next day it is all back in? We have clerks that are reconciling it from the first week of school, then the NCVP code is back in the student's attendance.
Right. That's that issue that we have into campus right now. We don't know that if it has to do with the fact that somebody has daily posting on that code, or if it's just that the functionality isn't working correctly right now for the office clerk to override it. So we're trying to work through that. We've made campus aware that we were under the impression, districts were given the impression that the office could override those codes and it would stick, and it's not sticking right now. Every time that runs, whether it's, you may want to check. I don't know if you're set up for daily or weekly frequency for that to run. My first suggestion would be maybe move it to weekly, but I would think then it's just going to do it all again the next week. So that may not help with this. We're going to try and talk with campus to see if there's a problem with functionality that we can get worked out. So that's a known issue. Bear with us.
The next question just asked if the recording will be posted, and Laura has already replied to that saying that it will be posted on our COVID page.
And just a side note, I think isn't it available anytime after this if you keep your invite and the link? It takes a little time after we're done here for it to post and get set. But, give it an hour or two, I think if you come back and click this link again where you access this, it'll immediately start playing the recording also.
Yes, that is correct.
So you can just, forward this link that was in your invite to anybody, save it, or you can wait until it posts on our COVID page.
This one says, my preschool Head Start teachers don't post attendance NIC. The secretary does it for them on Fridays. Can the secretary use the classroom monitor to post participation for Head Start / preschool classes? If not, can we ask IC for the classroom monitor to mesh with participation?
Okay, so I think, and Josh is going to have to correct me here, I think the only way for your office clerk to be able to post that attendance is if they were listed as a teacher on the class. I don't know that, right? They're not going to have access to that.
That is correct.
Any other way. The same way with participation. Right now, you have to have access and be a teacher in the class to have access to that participation. That's what we're hopefully working with Infinite Campus to get a solution so that office staff can have access to that participation also. But no, the only way to it right now is through that classroom monitor, and the only way to access that classroom monitor is to be a teacher in that class.
The next question is directed to Wendy. It says, will you all add more sections to the participation plan? I've already used 2 of the 6, and I know I will need to add 2 more in October due to our fall break plans.
We have not accommodated to have more than that. I'm not exactly sure why you will have so many. Basically, you've already had 2, so that just give me a call or send me an email so we can look at the district database and discuss it. I mean, you should really only be changing it or adding a new participation type each time you have a overall change for the school. So did they go from 100% virtual to hybrid, then you would have a change. If they go from hybrid to 100% in person, then you're going to have a 3rd change. So I'm not sure of scenarios in which you would have more than the 7 or 8 participation types that we have created on the custom tab. But of course, if we get to the point where we need more, we will definitely look into that. But if you don't mind reaching out to me so I can actually look at your district database and maybe see what's going on before I answer it holistically.
Okay, thank you. The next one says, if we do the weekly posting of participation, if the teacher marks one day, does it take care of the rest of the days?
No. What that weekly posting of participation means is that means once a week on Sunday is when all of those codes are posted to the attendance table. So participation still needs to be tracked daily. So I'm a teacher and I go in, I do all of my classes throughout the week, and maybe I don't mark my participation until I'm done on Friday or sometime over the weekend, but I go in and mark every day that everyone participated. And then on Sunday night, if I run it weekly, it just means that weekly job picks up every day of participation in that week. And it just does it once during the week instead of doing it, Monday at midnight, Tuesday at midnight, Wednesday at midnight. It just does it one time.
Okay. The next question says, QCP and QCE attendance groups. Will we get attendance codes that go with that?
No, we weren't going to, do any specific attendance codes that go with that. You can create a, attendance code in your district that, is, depends on if you're considering that an excused or an unexcused absence on your end. Have I said anything wrong there, Josh?
No, just a quick note. Just keep in mind when you're back in school and in session, when your kids are either quarantined for a positive or exposed, if they're in person, you can switch those to your blended learning group virtual, and they can still continue to work. It's not really that they're going to be absent.
Right. Thank you.
This one says, if a student shows up for first and second period classes but does not show up for third and fourth period class, do you still count them as participated?
Yes. We are looking at participation at least once during the day. So, if my kid despises science and never goes to science, but goes to her other classes, the school and the district is still going to get participation credit for that day. So as long as one course shows some type of participation, either in-person attendance or remote participation, that student will be considered participating for that day.
But just keep in mind too, if you are in person, you need to, and that student is checking out, you need to make sure you check that student out for safety reasons.
Correct. You follow the same processes as you would before with check-ins, check-outs.
Can you discuss participation not being taken at the ATC schools? Staff at the high school do not know if the student is participating or not.
Yes, we actually, we had a meeting right before this meeting about this. We're going to work on hopefully some guidance, or at least an email that'll come out to you guys tomorrow with some suggestions for this. The way I understand it, what is going on is ATCs are tracking participation outside of campus, or sometimes they are actually using the attendance module to track participation. Blended learning was giving them some trouble, so the ATC database is not using blended learning. So there was no really good way to get that attendance back, because the home high school will still want to see, whether those students were participating through the ATC. So what we kind of have talked about, and we're going to hopefully get some better guidance together, but right now our plan is if you are at a home high school and you have any of the KTS courses in that home high school, they do not get picked up on lead. Simply being a KTS course excludes them from lead, which means you can kind of be a little bit more flexible with what you're doing on those. So one option is for the ATC to send the home high school some type of report, whether if they're tracking attendance, send an attendance report, whether it's participation tracked some way in a Google form or a spreadsheet or whatnot. If they provide that to the home high school can assign a teacher to those courses, because they're not picked up on lead, so it's not going to check to see if that teacher is approved to teach that class. But giving someone, whether it's an office clerk or another teacher, access to those classes and marking them as a teacher will give them access to then use those reports that are sent from the ATC to go in and mark participation. We know that is not the that's not the best option. That is the easiest for everyone, but right now that's what we've come up with to be able to get that data back and into the system at the home high school.
Here we've got a comment from Lisa Keeter, says the student COVID-19 attendance groups report was added last night.
Oh, okay. All right. Yeah, I forgot that. Thanks, Lisa. So those QCP and QCE codes, I'm talking about the right one. Yes, a report for those was added last night. So it was in the release. You may have to make sure you have access to those today, but it should be there.
This question says, if we haven't been using the virtual attendance posting piece, if we set this up now, will it write back to the beginning of the year?
Yes, as long as you have that that date, and I think it's that on your should be on your screen now. It's that date right under the enable virtual attendance posting. That date is the date that it will write back to. So as long as that first date there is your first day of school, that's what it'll write back to.
Hey, Jesse.
When you turn it on. Uh-oh, I messed up. Yes, Josh.
No, I messed up. I'm sorry. Keeter
Okay.
corrected me. It's the attendance posting start date.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. It's not your first date. I'm sorry. See, it's so small. I can't see it. I'm sorry. It's that second date on that screenshot you have right there. And what's it say again, Josh?
It's attendance posting start date.
Okay. So attendance posting start date.
And the posting job start day is when you have started to run the script for it.
Okay. All right. So the attendance posting start date, if that is set to your first day of school, it will go back and pick that up. Thank you, Lisa.
This one says, so are you saying that now posting virtual attendance isn't an option, that we have to do it?
Unfortunately, as of right now, yes. And I know that we had told you all before that this was optional. And I'm sorry, it's kind of a case of we're figuring this out as we go. We thought this was going to be an option that districts could choose to use, and now we're finding out that for our participation report to be able to grab pieces from the attendance table and pieces for participation, we're going to have to write them to one table together, NIC. So yes, we had told you this was optional. Now we're having to say, sorry, we were wrong. We're going to need that to be marked.
Next question says, when putting a student into the QCP or QCE attendance group, if they are in person, do we change them to virtual?
I would, yes, because I'm hoping if they are in either one of those groups, they are not in person any longer. And they are at home. So if they are at home, and this is a little bit different than normal, being out sick. If you have been diagnosed with COVID, you may be sick enough that you can't participate in school, and it needs to be, an excused or unexcused absence, whatever your district has decided. But if you were just quarantined, it could be that, someone in your household was positive and you're quarantined, but you feel fine and you can still continue with all of your instruction. You just continue it remotely. So the best way to do that would be to take an in-person student, move them to a remote learning group so that they can continue.
All right. This says, identifying online learners who are quarantine or COVID positive may be very difficult. Suggestions?
We may have to reach out and brainstorm a little bit with Angie and our health department, in our health group. I'm going to be honest, I hadn't thought of that, but yes, that
Angie
could be.
should be on the call.
I'm on here. What, can you repeat the question? I'm sorry.
Yeah, that's all right. They're asking if we have any suggestions for, kids who are remote, if they're still wanting us to kind of track who is COVID positive or quarantined. That may be a little harder if they're not coming to in-person school. Were they wanting to do that on DPH, or are they just concerned about those students who were in person that have been quarantined?
The final details are still being worked out, but as of now, they want data on both remote and in person if they can, but nothing's been finalized yet. So hopefully within the next week we'll have have a better plan.
Okay.
Together, and we'll let everybody know.
Okay, and we may have to do some brainstorming inside of KDE for different ways. I don't know if maybe that would be something teachers are doing enough to task them with asking that question, but there's maybe some other way to get the word out that to notify the school of that also.
The contact tracers will, like, when they get the case confirmed and reported to them by the lab or the doctor, they won't know if the kid's virtual or not. So they're going to contact that school and say, Johnny Jones has tested positive, and because they're going to need to get their contact information and do all their contacts, and that's when they'll say, oh, well, he's not currently enrolled, he's virtual right now. So that's between that communication, the school's going to be notified either way.
Right, the office will have that information and then know.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. So hopefully that'll help too.
Lisa has also posted a link for the guidance document for the 2021 virtual and performance-based course setup, and that is in the comments. So if anyone needs that, it is there as well.
Thank you, Lisa.
Next question says, our parents are making the participation, our parents are marking the participation, then teachers follow up and mark if a parent does not, but teacher knows the student participated. Is this okay to continue?
Yes, that is the option that you can turn on and let your parents and or students, through student portal, mark whether they have participated. This is perfectly okay. Like I said, as long as there's some type of, interaction with the teacher, and the teacher is kind of still looking to catch if anybody doesn't mark that they participated, and they know, we're kind of do a check to see if, somebody is marking when they really didn't participate. The teacher still has the right to, overrule that. But yes, that's perfectly fine.
All right, this one says, we have 900 plus students who are in a virtual placeholder and in a virtual group, but no attendance is taking. How do I include participation for them? I was late to the meeting.
Okay. When I would probably need to know, when you say that they're in virtual, does that mean they're in a virtual or a performance-based class? If they are in a virtual or a performance-based class, just like with attendance, participation will be given to those students upon passing the course. So if they are just in a virtual group through blended learning, then a teacher should have access to mark participation through the classroom monitor.
Are we required to use the NCVP code? We created our own code, just looking for clarification.
That's fine. If you created your own code, that's okay. We're just going to need to make sure something is being written to that attendance table when there wasn't participation. So if your district now, as long as the code that you created has either an excused or an unexcused absence, because we found out that codes that are created with an unknown excuse code, they will not write to the attendance table. So if your district came up with something before we were able to push something down and you're using it, or you have multiple codes for some reason, as long as they have an excuse code of excused or unexcused, yes, you can use your code. Campus has not told us that it is specific to our code. It's just there needs to be a attendance code in there.
All right, this next one says, teachers should save their attendance in a 100% virtual class, right?
Teachers should save their attendance in a 100% virtual class. I'm a little confused by what they're asking here. I'm wondering if they're asking if they should save the attendance for a virtual and performance-based class, or if they're saying, should they take it and just hold on to it? Because to me, if I had a 100% virtual class, that means everybody is remote. I would be taking attendance of who either logs onto a Zoom with me or participates through LMS, and then I put that into campus as participation. I would think that would be recording it. So I may be misunderstanding the question a little bit. I'm sorry.
This next one says, when are we required to turn on posting virtual attendance, or is this a requirement?
This is going to be a requirement for the participation report to run. Now, we are still working on the participation report. So, I'm not saying you have to go leave this meeting and turn that on. But prior to, you need to turn that on and make sure your start date has gone back to the first day of school prior to running the participation report the first time. And I know that's a little weird because we don't even have the participation report yet. So, if you wanted to, put that off, you technically could put that off a little bit. I would recommend not putting it off too long because we need to kind of see what other issues there might be for your district for turning this on.
The next question I think you've talked to, but just to clarify, I'll go ahead with it. So a teacher forgets to mark their participation before the original day setup to be posted. Can you go in and change the amount of time they have to post to allow the teacher to post?
Yes, I believe, and I'm going to get Josh to correct me if I'm wrong here. At any point in time, you can change that number of days that a teacher has to post to that attendance. So you can increase it. If somebody forgot, now you can't just increase it for that teacher. You have to realize you're increasing it for everybody. So you can increase it, but it'll increase it for everyone. And then you also have to remember that it may take until that next, whenever you're uploading, for it to catch and then go into the attendance table and onto parent portal.
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, this says, so for QCP, QCE, home hospital, we still need to mark for participation.
Yes, that is correct.
Yes, if they are participating. There is, and I paused with that because there is a scenario where you have a COVID positive student who is sick and cannot participate and would just be a regular absence, and there would be no participation on that day. So I don't want to give a blanket, yes, you mark participation for that day, because, kiddo could be too sick to participate that day.
Next one says, what is considered a hybrid? We have given students the option of an in-person or online. Is this considered hybrid? We may be starting our in-person group an A-B rotation at some point.
Wendy, do you want to take that, or you want me to take a stab at it?
Sorry.
I'll take a stab at it. Oh, there you are.
Couldn't find my mute button.
It's all right.
The hybrid, my understanding is if you are offering in-person and virtual to your students, then that is considered hybrid.
So pretty much anytime you're doing more than one thing.
Yes, that is correct. And while I'm on here, I did verify on the school participation tab that we discussed that I will be able to add fields to that and push down. So if you get to the point where you have filled out all of the 6 available entries on that screen, just if you will send me an email, I will be glad to work on getting some fields added to push down to the custom tab.
All right. Thank you, Wendy. Okay, Brad, I think we have time for one more question. And I know we probably have many more than that, but we'll have to, we want to be respectful of everybody's time here. And we'll do one more question, and then we'll answer the other ones via the FAQ.
Okay.
All right.
This says, I have already told my principals and secretaries that virtual attendance is not going to be posted to the attendance table until 9/28. If my top date is 9/28, but my bottom date is my first day of school, is this okay? That's only 2 weeks away.
Yes, yes. And like I said, The reason I would suggest you go ahead and do it a little earlier is just to try to, work out the kinks. I don't, we're not going to have this participation report, before 9/28 because, it has to come off the release and there's not another release unless somebody's going to overrule me here and tell me I'm wrong. Sorry. There isn't another release before that date. So if you were to push it out to 9/28, and then it would catch everything back to the beginning of the school, that would be fine. So, but you're going to want to have that enable virtual participation writing back to the attendance table before you run the participation report the first time. So, okay. Does anybody else on the call with me have anything they'd want to say quick before we wrap up? Okay, I'm going to take silence as a no. So thank you all for logging on today. If we didn't get to your question, we'll put it in an FAQ and get those answered. There's some other questions I know we have to follow up on, like no pass, no drive, and we'll get that out to everybody. Thanks for joining us today.